NextGen welcomes you to our webinar on NextGen Security Intelligence Center. Firstly, we would like to thank you for taking out time for the webinar. We have gathered here today to discuss the changing security scenario in the present time. As you all know, companies today are spending huge amounts to keep their data safe. New and advanced methods of attack are being used by cyber criminals and hackers such as offensive forensics and DYOD attacks and malware injection. Such attacks have forced us to look for a new approach in security incident management. To provide information and insights into the approach required to handle the modern age threats, we have with us Mr. Gopinathan K. and team. Mr. Gopinathan is the practice head, Network and Security at Wipro. We also have with us Mr. Bivin John Varghese and Mr. Paresh Mohanty here. Bivin and Paresh are practice managers in managed security services. They are SMEs in various IT security technologies, including forensic analysis. So without any further delay, let's begin with the session. So now we start. Over to you, Mr. Gopi.
See, this is Gopinathan. I head practice for managed network and security services in Wipro Infotech. And the objective of this webinar is today whatever the kind of tools, technologies, and methods and processes we are using for handling the security incidents, threats, or risk is not going to be enough in the days ahead, because the very technology which has helped the businesses to grow is creating a lot of problems, and it is also creating disruptions, and also it is destroying the businesses, because the threats are becoming more advanced, and the attackers are using advanced methods in creating disruptions to the business. And this has been seen in almost all the industries, and banking and financial industries are becoming one of the most targeted industry today. And next to that, retail industries are being targeted, and energies and utilities and SCADA systems are being attacked. And the cyber security threats are becoming one of the most critical thing to handle for the nation. It is even today put on top of even the terrorist attack that are happening. And this is what is happening, and this is one of the critical points for discussion across the world as well. And today India is joining hands with almost all the countries which are interested in handling and mitigating the cyber threats. And all the businesses, be it the government departments or the enterprises today leveraging on IT for their success. And it is very, very important for CISOs to protect the business, and CISO's job is going to become more and more critical than even the CIO's role in the organization. So with this context in mind, to handle the advanced threats, what are all the kind of framework and controls we should be putting in place for the organization? That is something which we will be discussing. When we are discussing, we will be talking about how the advanced threats can be handled, how the BYOD related threats can be handled and mitigated, and how the fraud and forensic analysis can be done, and what are all the kind of the support and the technologies and the services the organizations should be taking or should be having. These are all certain things we will be discussing in this webinar. Now I will hand over this to Bivin John Varghese, who is the practice manager in managed security services, and he is also having expertise in various security technologies, including cyber security. Along with him, Paresh Mohanty, who is another practice manager with expertise knowledge on various security technologies, will be presenting the contents in this webinar. Over to Bivin.
In fact, Gopinathan had given a quick brief on what we were going to explain today, and he had set the context also on how this topic had come into picture. And this topic is of prime importance, not just for states, but for the entire nation. I mean, when we talk of nation, we're not just talking of India as a nation. We are actually referring to it from a global standpoint. So this is a topic of importance right from the US to the UK and all of the places. So by cyber security or cyber intelligence, we are actually trying to protect people and organizations, and we are actually trying to protect people and organizations from the hackers, criminals, hacktivists, terrorists, employees who might not be satisfied, who's probably had some issues with the organizations that they work for. We are actually trying to protect people and organizations from spies, from social engineers, and the last but not the least, which is of prime importance these days, is actually there are a lot of state-owned or nation-owned actors who come into picture and work for the interests of a particular nation. So this essentially says the reason as to why this topic is of prime importance. So from the previous times, when IT when there were times when there were lots of businesses which were not really using the online platforms for doing transactions, when e-business was not of prime importance, then all of these were not of prime importance. I mean, you did not have a lot of hackers, a lot of crackers, a lot of criminals working around in the IT space to hack or crack infrastructures. But as of now, you see a considerate amount or increase in number of this activity for the simple reason most of the organizations out there have started using e-business platforms and online platforms for their businesses, which is essentially the reason why you can see a huge amount of people who are the bad guys, who can be called the bad guys, also spending in a lot of time on working on cracking and getting into these infrastructures. So when I talk about cyber security, I'm actually trying to incorporate or include all types of electronic attacks. We're actually referring to the cyber espionage, the cyber crimes, hacktivism, warfares. We're actually referring to a time where cyberspace is actually used by nations for warfares also. And lastly, we can see a slight trend moving towards using the cyberspace for terrorism also. We can see a shift in the terrorist activities also, wherein they have started leveraging on the cyberspace for their terrorist activities also. So when we are referring to cyber espionage, we are actually referring to a bad person trying to steal another organization's IP or intellectual properties. Now we all know that IP for a company is of prime importance for the simple reason, if you take the pharmaceutical space, we would all be knowing that these companies would be spending a huge amount of money in their R&D departments, spending in a couple of years and not less than 10 years to come out with specific medicines for specific diseases. And at the end of the day, when you have a bad person using the cyberspace for getting that IP, of which the first company spent about let's say more than 10 years, spend a good amount of money also to make that particular composition, it really hits the business big time. The bad guy would be sending in that IP property, would be selling in that IP property to a third party, and that third party could be using in that IP to create that particular composition in, let's say, as little time. So we are actually talking about protecting that data, which is of prime importance, which is the IP of a company. And the cyberspace, as we were just referring also, is used by, these are certain vectors which we see as of now. But having said that, we see this vectors increasing. So down the lane, maybe next year we could see a lot more vectors coming into picture, leveraging on the cyberspace for generating attacks. So I just wanted to create a background on why is cyberspace or cyber intelligence, the cyber security of prime importance. So having said that, there had been financial implications also on customers because, they might probably had not paid much of importance as they were supposed to have paid at that particular point in time. We're actually, I've put in a couple of, references out there where, these organizations were actually part of these attacks and that actually led to their downfall. The first one mentioned over here is Nortel, which we all know was, a telco device provider. And, this might be a little scary. I mean, for about somewhere close to about 7 to 9 years, they actually had hackers exploiting a vulnerability within their system, and these hackers were actually reading emails of the top executive of this company. Almost 7 top executives of this company, their mails were being read by these hackers, and net somewhere in 2009, just because of all these issues that were created, and Nortel to some point were not ready to accept that this had been happening in a very genuine manner. What happened in 2009? They had to suffer for bankruptcy. And if you look at the third reference mentioned there, because an APT was used, somewhere about the $550 million had to be spent on redesigning the fighter plane, which was made by the company, and somewhere about they had to redesign the entire design of this for somewhere close to about 700 aircrafts, which is very significant in number. And lastly, I just wanted to highlight this also. Somewhere last year, the Q3 results of Google also was leaked in by a contractor. And what happened was their stocks plunged by about 9%. So the results were instant, and we're actually referring to a time where cyberspace or cyber hacktivism is actually used on targeting organizations and targeting nations. So this, I just wanted to put this slide over here, which essentially brings out the message from the heads of states. So over here we see Obama mentioning that in his own statement he says that the growing number of attacks on cyber network has become one of the most serious economic and national security threats our nation faces. So this is how the U.S., the head of the state, sees the cyber security of prime importance. And then if we see this from the chairman of the Home Affairs Select Committee of UK, he says, we are not winning the war on online criminal activity. The threat of cyber attack to the UK is so serious, it is marked as a higher threat than a nuclear attack. So we see it given, the degree of which the amount of focus that is given right from the head of the state for this particular cyber threat is actually, is compared to that of a nuclear attack. And then looking into our own nation, These are few snapshots taken in from a recent notification that was sent in by the by the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, the DATI, and this was actually sent to all the ministries, the government ministries, the Cabinet Secretariat, the PMO, the Planning Commission, the CAG, and this was a notification that was sent somewhere in July, wherein they had actually enlisted a 23 point strategy on how, as a nation, we have to fight against, the people who are using cyberspace for all these activities. And if we look at an extract by Colonel S.S. Raghav also, I mean, he is actually trying to compare, and he's actually trying to bring both the terrorism activity that happens, to that of a cyber terrorism. And he says we are not far away from seeing a situation where terrorists, who use ammunition and things like that, would be using IT also for launching their attacks. We are actually in a phase where terrorists also have started effectively using the cyberspace for generating terrorist attacks towards their targets. So with all this, we see that this particular topic has attained a lot of importance and is of prime importance right from the head of the state. So with that, we've actually set the context of why cyber intelligence is required. And with this, I would want to quickly draw a cyber intelligence framework. Yeah, so I hope you're all able to see my screen. So if you look at this framework, it starts with a green circle. It starts with the dark green circle, which is environment. First of all, in a cyber intelligence framework, so when Wipro was in this exercise of setting up our cyber intelligence framework, and when we had lots of requirements coming in from the space outside also, wherein a framework had to be designed for end customers where they consider themselves also to be a target or a victim of cyber attacks. So this was a framework that we had put in, and I could probably spend a quick 3-minute on this framework so that all of you listening to this today also could see on how this could be relevant with respect to your infrastructure, and you could see on how this could be applied to your setup too. And yes, we would be more than happy to answer questions also around this framework. So it starts with the environment. So when I say environment, we're actually I'm actually trying to draw a perimeter for the scope for a business. So I'm actually referring to the IT assets and the non-IT assets, so that net the organization gets to know that I have so many number of components which is used, which could be IT in nature, or which could be non-IT in nature also. So in that phase, we are actually trying to scope the entire list of assets, which moves forward to the next phase, which is the data gathering phase. So in the first phase, which is the environment, the scoping phase, we get to understand the different channels of communications that we would be having of business channels that we would be having. And in the second phase, we are actually trying to create a charter for identifying the data gathering matrices for all those, for the scope that is defined in the first phase. And in the third phase, which is the functional analysis phase, we're actually trying to derive the what and the how of that particular transaction. And this essentially comes in from the data that is gathered in phase 2. So in this functional analysis phase, we are actually referring to, a functional analyst breaking down that particular transaction, trying to understand, that particular, the context of that particular transaction, using the IT components that, that organization probably would be having. And, if I just give a quick example over there, at that particular phase, a functional analyst probably would be using in his, let's say, his security analytics platform. He would be using his database activity monitoring to get events from his databases. He might be using his web application firewalls to get events coming in from all his application interfaces. He would be using his vulnerability assessment tools. He would be using the output coming out from the vulnerability management program of that organization. And with that, essentially, he gets to know, he gets to know the source IP address along with the destination IP address, along with the protocols that are used for that transaction. And, he nails that particular transaction with every functional, piece of information that particular transaction could provide. And then further, it moves on to the next phase, which is the strategic analysis phase, wherein the who and the why of that particular transaction is analyzed. So that's where the business context also gets incorporated onto the functional analysis, that is done in the previous phase. So the strategic analysis would essentially, if I give an example, the inputs that comes in from the functional analysis might probably be, very much towards the IT side of it. Whereas the strategic analysis, the strategic analyst would probably be bringing in the business context also to that functional, input that came in from the previous phase. So the strategic analyst would probably try to incorporate, the intelligence, the functional intelligence that has come with respect to, checking whether state actors were used, to check whether competitors or, other state actors, nation actors were used in generating that particular transaction towards his organization. So the strategic analyst brings in the business context also to that particular transaction and sends in a crisp report, a quick feed to the decision maker, which could essentially be, let's say, the board or, the head of that particular organization. So the head of that organization might not necessarily understand, the head of the organization might not necessarily understand the nitty-gritty of that particular transaction. But the strategic analyst breaks that particular transaction and brings in the business context to it, adds a value to that particular transaction so that the decision maker is well aware of the security risk, the cyber risk that his organization faces. So based on the inputs coming in from the strategic analyst, the decision maker would be enabled in taking the right decision for his organization, which would further be sent back as a feedback to the strategic analysis team, and it's a cycle. So this strategic analysis would give those inputs back to the scope. So you might be having, let's say, a rating which is done based on the input that comes in from the strategic analyst team. So the environment incorporates the input that comes in from the decision maker, and then further this goes. So the cyber security, which you see in the center, is actually the heart of where all these transactions get in. And cyber security, which is actually an input for the environment phase. So the cybersecurity essentially would keep a tab of the entire list of IT assets, the non-IT assets, and advise the environmental phase, telling him that, hey, we see a list of assets that has been added, into this particular business, which has this criticality with respect to the organization's business. So this is a continuous phase. And with this framework, we are actually, trying to bring down a top-down approach, wherein right from the executive sponsor of this particular framework, right from the sponsor down to the nitty-gritty administrators, all of them are equally committed on, ensuring this cyber intelligence framework succeeds. Now, I would quickly want to get into the cyber security piece of it also. So the cyber security piece is actually, that enabler, that IT enabler, which could probably be, it could be a security analytics platform. It could be a big data platform which has potential on receiving feeds from all these different spheres. So if you look at it, you have both the IT components coming into picture and the non-IT. You see the physical security feeds coming in. You see the mobility devices, the smartphones, the iPads, and all of those sending in feeds through the mobility control devices. And then you have your data center components also sending in feeds, which includes your firewalls, IPSs, IDSs. And then if you have a privileged identity management also incorporated, those would also essentially send the privilege violations also that are happening within the organizations and within the administrators who are given privileges for the IT assets and the non-IT assets that would be there within the organization. And then you have the endpoint feeds also coming in. Along with the databases, you would have all your applications probably hosting their databases in those critical infrastructures. So those database feeds also get into the security analytics platform along with the application support feeders. So when I'm actually referring to the application support, I'm actually referring to the entire brand protection piece of it. Because when an application is hosted over the internet, it actually holds a lot of brand value of that particular organization. So you're actually supposed to look into a lot of vectors when you when you look at it from a brand value. So you could be targeting it, let's say, from an anti-phishing or an anti-farming standpoint. You could be referring it from an anti-malware standpoint, or you could be referring it from an application assessment, right from your SDLC standpoint. So all of those would be sending in feeds to your security analytics platform, and all of these would be complemented by the governance, risk, and the compliance framework. So over here, I just wanted to differentiate between the cyber security piece and the cyber intelligence piece. Now there is a clear difference between both of these, and with this, I just wanted to clearly demarcate the differences between the cyber security and the cyber intelligence. So as we saw in the cyber intelligence framework, cyber security is actually a subset of the cyber intelligence framework. So cyber security is nothing but, the action for that particular point in time. So that's where, you might essentially be finding a threat, you would be fixing that particular vulnerability, and then you move on. Whereas when you refer to it from a cyber intelligence standpoint, you're actually referring to it from acquiring and analyzing information to identify, track, and predict cyber capabilities, intentions, activities to offer course of action that enhance decision making. You're actually referring to it from a proactive angle. So when you're referring to it from a cybersecurity angle, you're actually referring to it, let's say, from a real-time basis or a near real-time basis. But when you're looking at a cyber intelligence standpoint, you're actually one step behind. You're actually one step behind the cybersecurity thing, and you're actually visualizing on the threats that your organization could probably be facing down the lane. So the cyber intelligence actually adds as a feeder to the cyber security framework, which we just saw in the previous slide. So cyber intelligence is nothing but a combination of security and intelligence. The overlapping of both of these would bring out cyber intelligence. So with this, I just wanted to quickly, with this we've understood on the importance of cyber security. With this, we've understood the framework, the cyber intelligence framework, along with the cyber security framework. And I just wanted to highlight on a couple of tasks. If you would be having in mind to set this framework within your organization, these might be a list of tasks. The cyber intelligence analysts who would be part of that particular framework, they would be doing these, and many of these are self-explanatory. But when you look at it, this not just brings it from, brings the amount of, the work the analysts do from an IT standpoint, it actually brings it from a non-IT standpoint also. So, you can see the brand intelligence analysis work going on. You see a huge amount of reverse engineering work going on. You see certain amount of work going on around the social engineering. You see a certain amount of work going about the emergency response and the incident response framework that you would, or the incident response process that you would probably be having in your organization. And we're actually referring to, federal regulations. You would be having a lot of regulatory, norms also you would have to comply with. So these are a snapshot of tasks. These are a snapshot of tasks, the cyber intelligence analyst would be doing as part of his day-to-day tasks. And if you look at their core competencies, a cyber intelligence analyst core competencies would span across analytic competencies and technical competencies. So all of these are pretty self-explanatory. So this essentially says, when we are actually looking at it from a cyber intelligence standpoint, we are actually looking at it one step, or I would say two steps above the SOC intelligence standpoint. We are actually looking at a stage where an organization has had a SOC in place and over time has matured that SOC into a cyber intelligence center. So the kind of skills that a cyber intelligence analyst should be having would be around this. And I just wanted to spend a quick minute over the communication and the collaboration bits that you see. The remaining is pretty self-explanatory. Many a times, there is a huge amount of work that goes within the cyber intelligence center, but many a times the output that comes out from the cyber intelligence center does not reach all, the targets it is supposed to reach. It might not reach the decision maker of the organization. It might not reach, the employees. I mean, in the form of awareness, user awareness. It might not reach, similar cert communities, so that they could also leverage on a learning that an organization has already gone through. So, a cyber intelligence analyst communication skill also should be very polished, so he gets to know on how to communicate and when to communicate on the findings that comes out from this intelligence center. So that's where technical writing, the writing towards the leadership team, debating skills, because when you have an intel coming out from this team, you would obviously be having a lot of questions coming in within the business, from outside the business, within the supporting elements that you would be having for your business, within the regulatory the regulatory agencies that you would be reporting. It is as essential for an analyst to ensure that the piece of communication that goes is in the proper form, and it reaches the right place in the right form at that particular right time. So those are the key competencies a cyber intelligence analyst should possess, and this is something that you could probably keep in the back of your mind if you are thinking of rolling out the cyber intelligence framework. Along with that, I just wanted to quickly highlight on certain key lessons that we've learned, and that we've learned from organizations who've gone through cyber attacks over the past, and that we've learned from OEMs who specialize in products and technologies, that we've learned from within ourselves. I mean, when we are actually referring to a learning, I'm actually referring to the learnings that we've incorporated over the past from people, from processes that we've been having, and from technologies that we've been using over the past. So the key learnings that that we've identified is, first, communication is key. So this is one area we've seen a gap that has happened. So the first thing that an organization has to do is have a proper communication plan, be it to your employees in the form of user awareness, be it to your customers to keep them informed on the kind of attacks the organization is prone to. You would obviously have to keep your shareholders also, an organization shareholders also, informed on that crisp information. So to the shareholder, an IT specific information might not really make sense. So that's where the cyber intelligence framework comes into picture, and the strategic analyst feed will have to be sent to the stakeholders also, and then yes, we're living in a phase where we're living in a very socially connected phase, where all of us tweet, where all of us blog, where all of us are connected through the Facebooks, and so no matter how you try to hide things, the press on the outside, the world outside would come to know on things. So you should have a proper communication plan towards the world outside also. And essentially, not the least, whatever learnings are coming in from within your organization, you would have to have a clear communication plan to the agencies within, the nation, so that they get to communicate that to the similar agencies. Let's say if you belong to a BFSI vertical, you could probably share those learnings with the BFSI community, so that another banker, who's part of that community, could could out of box use that intelligence. He might not have to necessarily reinvent that wheel again. And the second is knowing what is happening on your network. I mean, you should be the first one to know what's happening, rather than as we saw in that example before, Nortel Telco did not really come to know what was really happening. They came to know of it after about 7 or 8 years, which proved to be very late, and they had to file bankruptcy. The need for a solid cyber incident response and process team is also of prime importance, for the simple reason, cyber intelligence framework is a framework. I mean, it has to happen on ground. When I say it has to happen on ground, it is a continuous process. I mean, you just cannot have a framework and say it's up and running and safe. I mean, it's supposed to be a continuous process, and that's where you are supposed to have a solid incident response and process team, who gets to act on that input, that intelligence that comes out from this framework. And yes, obviously you would have to have proper asset management. And many a times we see organizations, working in the dark. They really are not aware of the kind of IT assets, the non-IT assets that are part of their scope. And then obviously you should be knowing the different stakeholders and their information needs. You should be the first one to know the different stakeholders on the outside and their stake within your organization, and the kind of information they are entitled to ask you and collect from you. And last but not the least, you would have to have an integral approach. When I say an integral approach, I'm actually referring to it from a holistic view. So this approach has to be signed off right from the executive management, right from the sponsorship of that particular program. The executive sponsor should have that commitment, coming in right from the top, all the way down to the monitoring and the reporting, which is your ground level guys who do the day in, day out operations. So this, approach has to be seen from a holistic angle. And having said that, you should be open for the different kind of feeds also. We live in a very volatile world where, the business model that is applicable for this quarter might not necessarily be applicable for the following quarters. So you should be open to the feeds coming in from, technological improvements, from the changing markets and client needs. And at the end of the day, based on changing markets, based on changing requirements, changing users, you have a lot of laws and regulatory norms also changed. So you should be ready to, you should be ready to accept these feeds. You should be ready to have these feeders coming into your system. Another thing that I think that I thought would make sense are the top 10 principles. These could be probably handy. And the first thing is, you should obviously, as a key security stakeholder of your organization, you should obviously be looking beyond the technologies that are incorporated within your organization. You should not consider compliance. You might have to comply with a lot of compliances your organization, as from a business standpoint, would have to comply with. But you should not see yourself limited within those compliance requirements. And quickly moving forward, you should have a robust incident response and process in place, an incident response team and an incident response process in place, so that the inputs that comes in, you would have a robust team in place to take action on that particular intel that comes into your organization. And the different kind of actions that you could probably think of is, number one, user awareness and educating your end users. It could be your end customers, it could be your end employees. So we see a lot of importance moving towards employee awareness, which is a good sign. And obviously, try to keep all your systems up to date. And it is always good to have, make backups of, the important pieces of information or, that you could be having, and try to challenge those backups once in a while. You could probably try it once in 6 months. Try to challenge that backup and think of a scenario where that particular information is lost, and you would have to recover a copy from the backup that you've archived. And last but not the least, have an incident process, an incident management process also in place, wherein you very clearly define the detection mechanisms and the actors on who are responsible for acting on whatever is detected and prioritize as part of your incident management matrix. And the proactive measures that you would probably be considering, the proactive feeds that would be coming in from your cyber intelligence framework would have to be considered, would have to be given to the respective teams within your organization, so that they get to prepare themselves, they get to put those proactive measures in place, while they prepare themselves, against these cyber threats. So with this, I come up to the end of the cyber intelligence along with the cyber threats piece that I wanted to communicate. And with this, we just wanted to communicate that any of you out there are looking onto incorporating a cyber intelligence framework or a cyber security framework, we would be more than happy to answer your questions. We would be more than happy to handhold you, give you those informations, put those missing processes, and give you on-demand services, right from your on-demand services that you might probably be thinking that might not be coming in as an on-demand service. You could probably let us know those, and right from the vulnerability assessment to the penetration testing to the on-demand fraud and forensic analysis based on the case-to-case scenarios, we could be of help, and we would be more than happy to answer your questions and be of help to assist you in building this framework.
Thanks, Bhavin. Thanks for this informative session.